Introduction. I'll One video that will change the way you see the world. We're counting down some of the most chilling true horror stories ever told. You'll want to hear every one. These tales will make your skin crawl and your heart race. The darkness is closing in and the shadows are alive with whispers of the unknown. Are you ready to face your fears? 2. The New House. Sarah was thrilled when she got the keys to 42 Maple Street. The old house had character, and she spent that first day settling in, eager for a fresh start. But things got weird that very first night. As Sarah drifted off to sleep, a low creaking sound echoed through the hallway. Her heart pounding, she called out, "Hello?" No answer. Just more creaking. She got up to investigate, flicking on lights as she went, but found nothing out of place. It kept happening. Night after night, strange sounds filled the house. Creaking, whispers, muffled conversations. She'd wake up to find doors open she was sure she'd closed. Sarah tried to explain it away. Old houses make noises, right? Maybe it was the pipes or the wind or mice in the walls, but nothing seemed to add up. Then things got really freaky. One morning, all her kitchen cabinets were wide open. Another day, a book flew off her shelf right in front of her eyes. Sarah was running out of logical explanations. About a month after moving in, Sarah found something that made her blood run cold. While cleaning her bedroom, she noticed a loose floorboard. Underneath, she discovered an old, faded photograph. It showed a family standing in front of her house, probably from the 1950s based on their clothes, but their expressions, they looked terrified. With shaking hands, Sarah turned the photo over. On the back, in faded ink, was a single sentence: "Help us." She dropped it like it had burned her. For the first time, Sarah seriously considered that maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone in this house after all. 3. The Thompson family's nightmare. Houses hold memories, but some refuse to stay buried. The Thompson family had no idea what awaited them when they moved into their new home. At first, they were thrilled. Mom, Dad, little Timmy, and his older sister Sarah couldn't stop smiling as they unpacked. But things got weird fast. A week after moving in, 5-year-old Timmy began speaking of a shadow man watching him, waking up crying in fear. His parents tried to calm him, checking his room for monsters, figuring it was just adjustment issues. But Timmy was different. He kept insisting the shadow man was there, night after night. It wasn't just Timmy, though. Soon, the whole family started having intense nightmares. Sarah would dream of being chased through the house. Mr. Thompson would wake up convinced someone was standing at the foot of the bed. Even level-headed Mrs. Thompson became exhausted and jumpy. They tried everything. Night lights, calming music, even had a priest bless the house. Nothing worked. The nightmares just kept getting worse. Then came that night. The night that changed everything. I still get chills thinking about it. The Thompsons went to bed as usual. But when they woke up, the house felt different. There was this heavy feeling in the air, like right before a big storm hits. And then they saw it. Blood red writing all over the walls. Not just scribbles, but actual messages. "Get out. We're still here. This is our home." The weirdest part? The handwriting looked super old-fashioned, like something from 100 years ago. I saw pictures later. The messages were everywhere. The living room, the hallways, even little Timmy's bedroom. The Thompsons were freaking out, trying to figure out how this happened. And they checked all the doors and windows, but nothing was broken. No sign of anyone breaking in. That's when they knew. Whatever was in that house, it wasn't human, and it wanted them gone. 4. Parallel lives. The Thompsons were terrified, but They weren't the only ones facing unexplainable horrors. Across town, Sarah was about to uncover a mystery that would blur the lines between past and present. Sarah couldn't stop staring at the old photograph she'd found under the floorboards. Those scared faces of the family in front of her house, they haunted her. She had to know more. She spent hours digging through local records and online archives. What she found chilled her to the bone. The family in the photo was the Andersons, John, Mary, and their 2 kids. They'd moved into the house at 42 Maple Street in 1955. But here's the creepy part. In June of 1956, they all vanished without a trace. No bodies, no evidence of foul play, just gone. Like they'd been erased from existence. Meanwhile, the Thompsons were at their wits' end. Desperate for answers, Mr. Thompson set up cameras and motion sensors throughout the house. "We're going to catch this thing on film," he told his family. They hoped to finally get proof of what was tormenting them. That night, both households experienced something they'd never forget. Sarah woke up around 3 a.m. to the sound of footsteps in the hall. Her heart was pounding as she crept out of bed. The air felt thick, almost electric. She made her way to the bathroom, hands shaking as she flicked on the light. When she looked in the mirror, she screamed. There, reflected behind her, was a man she'd never seen before. He looked wrong somehow, like he wasn't fully there. But the weirdest part, he looked exactly like John Anderson from the old photo. The same moment, across town, the Thompsons' cameras were going crazy. Objects were moving on their own, doors slamming shut. And then, in Timmy's room, a figure appeared. It was blurry on the footage, but unmistakably a woman. She seemed to be looking right at the camera, her face a mask of terror. When they reviewed the footage the next day, Sarah felt her blood run cold. The woman in Timmy's room, she could have been Sarah's twin. It was like looking at a warped version of herself, trapped in some kind of nightmare. Sarah and the Thompsons had never met. They lived miles apart, but somehow their stories were starting to intertwine in ways none of them could have imagined. The boundary between past and present was starting to blur, and they were all caught in the middle of it. 5. The convergence. 2 houses, miles apart. 2 families, decades removed. Their fates intertwined through a mysterious force. Sarah couldn't take it anymore. The constant fear, the feeling of being watched. It was too much. She grabbed some clothes and ran to her car. At the same time, the Thompsons were packing up their van. They'd had enough of the nightmares. The writing on the walls, the shadow man terrorizing their son. As they drove away from their houses, something strange happened. Their vehicles suddenly died. Like some invisible force was holding them back. Despite their fear, they felt drawn back to their homes. The air seemed thick, charged with energy they couldn't explain. The moment they touched their doorknobs, everything shifted. Sarah blinked, and suddenly she was inside a house she'd never seen before. Mrs. Thompson opened her eyes to find herself in an old-fashioned living room, catching her reflection in a mirror, but it wasn't her face. It was Sarah's. The truth hit them like a ton of bricks. Their stories weren't just connected. They were the same story playing out across different decades. Sarah was reliving the nightmare of the Anderson family from 1956. The Thompsons were experiencing the echo of that horror in the present day. Sarah found herself face to face with John Anderson, the man from the old photograph. "You're here," he whispered. "You have to help us." Meanwhile, Mrs. Thompson, now in Sarah's body, was confronted by her family, looking faded like old photographs come to life. "We've been waiting for you," little Timmy said, his voice eerily adult. "Now we can finally break the cycle." As the 2 women struggled to understand, they realized the true horror wasn't just ghosts or demons. It was the fragility of reality itself. Time and space had folded in on themselves, trapping two families in an endless loop of terror. And now, Sarah and the Thompsons held the key to either breaking the cycle or becoming its next victims. 6. Conclusion. Reality isn't as solid as we think. These stories make us question what else could be hiding in plain sight. I keep thinking about Sarah and the Thompsons trapped in that loop of terror. It makes you wonder about the secrets lurking behind every corner, every seemingly normal house on your street. The scariest part isn't the ghosts or supernatural stuff. It's the idea that reality itself is fragile, that time and space can twist in the ways we don't understand. It changes how you see the world, you know? Makes you look at everything a little differently. Next time something eerie happens, something you can't explain, remember, there might be more connecting us than we can see. The world's a lot stranger than we give it credit for, and who knows what other impossible stories are out there, just waiting to be discovered.